Hey, everybody, and welcome to our deep dive on The Voice of the Body by Alexander Lowen.
Yeah,
I mean, this guy was like way ahead of his time
absolutely.
with this whole mind-body connection thing.
What's so fascinating about Lowen is that he approached therapy in this really holistic way through something called bioenergetic analysis.
Yeah, bioenergetic analysis. So it's not just about what's going on in your head.
Right.
It's about how your body and mind are totally like intertwined.
Exactly.
We're going to try to uncover those hidden connections and see what they reveal about you.
Yeah, Lowen was convinced that our bodies hold a ton of wisdom and can actually speak to us even if we don't realize it.
I love that. Okay, so he called this unlocking the body's language.
Yeah.
This is where it gets really interesting. Have you ever noticed how you tense up when you're stressed?
Oh, for sure.
Like maybe your shoulders creep up toward your ears,
Yeah.
or your jaws clench tight.
You know, Lowen would say that's your body trying to tell you something.
Oh.
Those muscle tension patterns can be a big clue to unexpressed emotions.
Okay.
Like clenched jaws might point to anger that you're holding back.
Wow. I never thought of it that way, but I know when I'm feeling anxious, I tend to get this knot in my stomach.
Yeah,
Could that be my body trying to process that anxiety?
absolutely. It's definitely possible.
Wow.
You know, Lowen even saw this in his own life. He had this nagging sciatica,
Oh, yeah?
and he eventually realized it wasn't just a random injury.
Hmm.
It was connected to how much he pushed himself, always going.
Yeah, always on.
His body was literally screaming at him to slow down.
Wild. That's so wild.
It is.
And there's this other story about how Lowen got poison ivy, and it totally mirrored how attacked he felt by a stressful situation.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Lowen believed even something like poison ivy could reflect a deeper emotional state.
I mean, it makes you wonder
Yeah.
if our bodies are really trying to tell us all these things.
It is. It's about tuning into those messages,
Yeah.
no matter how subtle they might seem.
Okay, so it's like our bodies are these incredible feedback systems, constantly giving us clues about what's going on beneath the surface.
Absolutely. And it leads us to another fascinating concept that Lowen explored the connection between pleasure and pain.
Ooh, okay. Let's unpack this, because I think when we hear pleasure, we tend to think of like indulging in our favorite foods or activities.
Right.
But Lowen had a totally different perspective, right?
Yeah, he did. Lowen believed that true pleasure is actually deeply tied to the natural rhythmic movements of a healthy body.
So it's not just about seeking out external sources of pleasure, but about tapping into something deeper within ourselves.
Exactly.
Right.
Think about a child jumping for joy.
Yeah.
It's a pure expression of bodily energy and excitement.
Yeah, pure joy.
Or even something as simple as walking with a spring in your step.
Yeah.
That sense of rhythm and flow can actually generate a feeling of pleasure.
You know, I find that even washing the dishes can be kind of meditative. If I focus on the rhythm of my movements, it's like I'm getting into a groove.
Exactly. Lowen even said that mundane tasks could become enjoyable if done with a sense of rhythm. It's about finding that flow in everyday life.
Yeah, I can see that.
And this ties into another point he makes about how restricted breathing can actually dampen our capacity for pleasure.
Oh, that's something to breathe on.
Yeah,
So if we want to experience more pleasure, we need to learn to breathe more freely.
that's a key part of it.
Okay, I'm liking where this is going.
Yeah.
When we restrict our breath, we're literally restricting the flow of energy in our bodies.
That's right.
This is making me rethink how I approach so many things. I'm already feeling inspired to pay more attention to my body's signals.
That's great.
But Lowen didn't shy away from the cuff stuff either, did he?
Not at all. He tackled some pretty heavy topics like the will to live and the wish to die.
Ooh, this part got really interesting.
Yeah.
Sounds a little dark, but I'm curious to hear more.
Yeah, it is a bit heavy, but it's also incredibly insightful. Lowen believed that we all have this primal desire for life, this will to live, as he called it. But at the same time, we also have this undercurrent of wanting to escape pain, even if that means kind of shutting down emotionally. That's the wish to die.
So it's like this constant push and pull between wanting to embrace life fully and wanting to protect ourselves from getting hurt.
Exactly. And he saw this playing out in so many of his patients. He even described working with a woman who was terrified to breathe deeply.
Oh, wow.
It was like she was literally afraid of life itself.
That's intense. I can't even imagine being that scared to even breathe.
It really highlights how deeply fear can manifest in the body. And Lowen believed that suppressing our emotions, while it might seem protective in the short term, actually depletes our energy and feeds that wish to die impulse.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like if we're constantly holding everything in, we're not really allowing ourselves to truly feel anything good or bad.
Right, and he saw this amazing thing happen with patients who finally allowed themselves to have a good cry, like a deep soul-cleansing sob. He didn't just see it as a release of sadness, but as a pulse of life flowing back into their bodies.
Man, I'm definitely feeling the need to take some deep breaths after that one. This is all making me think about those times when I felt completely numb, like I'm just going through the motions. Maybe that's my own version of that wish to die creeping in.
It's possible, and this leads perfectly into another challenging concept that Lowen explored the impact of horror.
Horror, like
Oh.
scary movies and stuff. I'm a total scaredy cat, so I try to avoid all that.
Well, Lowen was talking about something deeper than just jump scares. He saw horror as this sense of shock, something that stuns the mind and can actually create a disconnect between thinking and feeling.
So it's like when something so awful happens that you just can't even process it emotionally.
Exactly. He used this really powerful example of a young man who was raised by a mother who was so emotionally distant that he described her as inhuman. That early experience of horror literally shaped his perception of the world.
That's heartbreaking. It makes you realize how impactful our childhood experiences can be. But Lowen didn't just focus on individual experiences of horror. He also talked about societal horror, right?
He did. He saw things like violence, impersonal cities, even just the overwhelming pace of modern life as contributing to a collective sense of horror. And he believed that this can lead us to numb ourselves emotionally as a way of coping.
It's easier to shut down than to face the pain of it all.
Exactly. And that can have a ripple effect impacting our relationships, our creativity, even our physical health.
Wow, this is giving me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
I'm definitely guilty of tuning out sometimes when things feel too overwhelming.
It's a natural response, but it's important to be aware of the potential consequences. And this is where Lowen's work gets really practical.
Mhm.
He believed that we can actually reverse this numbing effect by reconnecting with our bodies and our feelings.
So how do we do that? What are some concrete steps we can take?
Well, one of the most powerful tools that Lowen talks about is expressive movement. It's about finding ways to release pent-up emotions through physical activity.
Like going for a run when you're angry, or dancing it out when you're feeling happy.
Exactly. It can be anything that allows you to move your body in a way that feels natural and expressive. Even something as simple as shaking your hands or stomping your feet can help release tension.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that when I'm feeling stressed, a good yoga class or even just a walk in nature can totally shift my mood.
That's a perfect example of how movement can help us regulate our emotions. And Lowen believed that this kind of movement is not just about physical release, but about reconnecting with our life force, that primal energy that he called the will to live.
So it's like we're shaking off the stagnation and waking up our bodies and minds. I'm loving this idea. What else did Lowen recommend?
Another key piece is learning to breathe more deeply. Remember how we talked about restricted breathing limiting our capacity for pleasure?
Uh-huh.
Well, the opposite is also true. Deep diaphragmatic breathing can actually help us access and release suppressed emotions.
So those deep breaths I was taking earlier were actually doing me good.
Absolutely. They were helping you to process those intense emotions we were talking about. Lowen even believed that deep sobbing could be incredibly transformative, a way of allowing those feelings to fully move through us.
It's like we're giving ourselves permission to feel the full spectrum of human experience, not just the pleasant parts.
Exactly. And by doing that, we're actually expanding our capacity for both joy and sorrow, which ultimately makes us feel more alive.
I'm feeling very inspired to incorporate more movement and deep breathing into my life.
Hmm.
But what about those of us who are chronically tense? Like, I know I hold a lot of tension in my shoulders and neck. What can we do about that?
Lowen developed a whole system of exercises and techniques to help people release chronic muscular tension. He believed that these tensions were not just physical, but also emotional armoring, a way of protecting ourselves from feeling vulnerable.
So it's like our bodies are literally holding on to those past hurts and fears.
Precisely. And by releasing those tensions, we can start to unravel those old patterns and create more space for joy and connection.
This is all so fascinating. It's like we're peeling back the layers of ourselves and discovering this whole new world of
Oh,
possibilities.
that's a great way to put it. And it leads us to another crucial aspect of Lowen's work, the importance of self-expression.
What did Lowen have to say about self-expression?
Well, he believed that self-expression is absolutely essential for living a full and vibrant life.
Okay.
He saw it as a way of expressing our unique individuality, of letting our true selves shine through.
So it's not just about like painting or writing poetry.
No, not at all.
It's about expressing ourselves in like all areas of our lives.
Exactly. He saw the body as a vehicle for self-expression through our movements, our voice, our posture, even our gaze.
I can see that.
He encouraged people to move in ways that felt natural and freeing to speak their truth and to make eye contact that conveyed genuine connection.
I've definitely noticed that when I'm feeling confident and self-assured, I tend to stand taller and make more eye contacts, like my body language is reflecting my inner state.
That's exactly what Lowen was talking about. And he believed that by consciously practicing self-expression, we can actually start to shift our inner state as well. It's a two-way street.
Interesting. This is making me think about those times when I've felt stuck or creatively blocked. Maybe
Yeah.
it's because I'm not allowing myself to fully express myself.
It's definitely something to consider. Lowen believed that when we suppress our emotions and hold back our true selves, we're literally blocking the flow of energy in our bodies.
Right.
And that can lead to all sorts of physical and emotional issues.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So if we want to unlock our full potential, we need to learn to express ourselves authentically. Sign me up. But speaking of unlocking potential, Lowen also had some pretty radical ideas about the nature of thought and feeling, didn't he?
He did. He actually challenged the conventional view that thinking and feeling are opposite forces.
Really, I always thought of them as like separate things, like you either think with your head and you feel with your heart.
Yeah, that's the common belief. But Lowen saw it differently. He believed that thinking actually arises from feeling.
Okay.
He saw the development of consciousness as this gradual process that starts with basic sensations of pleasure and pain, then evolves into emotions, and finally emerges as thought.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. So our thoughts are actually shaped by our emotions. That's a pretty powerful concept.
It is. And it has huge implications for how we understand ourselves in the world around us. Lowen believed that if we want to change our thoughts, we need to first address the underlying emotions.
Okay, this is all starting to feel very interconnected. Our bodies, our emotions, our thoughts, it's all part of like one big system.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of Lowen's work. It gives us this holistic framework for understanding the human experience. He even went so far as to say that objective thinking, which is often seen as the gold standard, actually requires a solid foundation of subjective experience.
So we need to be in touch with our own feelings and perceptions in order to think clearly and objectively.
That's fascinating. It's like we can't truly understand the world outside of ourselves until we understand the world within.
That's a great way to put it. And it highlights the importance of being aware of our own biases and perspectives. Lowen was a big advocate for critical thinking, questioning assumptions, considering different viewpoints, and not just accepting things at face value.
This is all making me realize how much I take for granted. Like, I often just go through life on autopilot, not really paying attention to what I'm feeling or thinking.
It's easy to get caught up in the busyness of life and lose touch with ourselves. But Lowen believed that by cultivating self-awareness, we can start to make more conscious choices and create a life that's truly aligned with our values.
Okay, I'm officially inspired to embark on a journey of self-discovery. But I think the most important message is that our bodies and minds are not separate entities. They're constantly in conversation with each other.
Yeah.
And by learning to listen to our bodies, we can unlock a deeper understanding of ourselves and our emotions and ultimately create a more fulfilling and joyful life.
I love that. It's like we have this incredible source of wisdom within us just waiting to be tapped into. Thanks for taking us on this incredible journey of discovery.
Yeah.
I know I've learned a ton, and I hope our listeners have too.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, the journey of self-discovery is ongoing. So keep exploring, keep listening to your body, and keep asking questions. There's always more to learn.
That's such great advice. Thanks again for joining us. And to our listeners, thank you for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.